Far in the back. There we go. All right, welcome everyone to the March 3rd, 2015 Shakopee City Council meeting. Ms. Henson, can you please call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember Lewis.
Present.
Councilmember Lehman.
Here.
Councilmember Whiting.
Here.
Councilmember Mokel.
Here.
Mayor.
Here. All stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, item number 3, approval of the agenda. Do we have any additions or corrections to the agenda this evening?
Nothing from staff, Mr. Mayor.
Anything from council? Councilor Mokel. Do
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
we have a second?
Second.
Second, Councilor Whiting. Any discussion? Seeing none, all's in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. Consent business. Anything to remove? I don't think we have anything we can add tonight. Anything to remove from consent? All right, entertain a motion. Councilor Whiting.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Councilor Lehman. Ms. Wilson, could you please read the consent business?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Item 4B1 authorizes the submittal of an application to the Shakopee Metawanketon Sioux community for a $30,000 public safety grant. 4C1 adopts resolution number 7552, accepting work on the 2013 street reconstruction project, project number 2013-1. 4C2 adopts resolution number 7555, approving plans and specifications and ordering advertisement for bids for the 2015 street reconstruction project, project number 2015-1. 4C3 authorizes appropriate city officials to sign standard encroachment agreements on behalf of the city without council action on each individual agreement. 4C4 authorizes appropriate city officials to enter into a cleaning contract with Treasure Enterprises, Inc. for seasonal park restroom cleaning from April 2015 to March 2016. 4D1 adopts resolution number 7556, amending the pay plan for part-time, temporary, and seasonal employees. 4D2 approves an amended position description for engineering technician and authorizes its placement in grade 5 of the city's 2015 pay plan for non-union employees. 4D3 approves the position description for the position of building maintenance manager and authorizes its placement in grade 5 of the city's 2015 pay plan for non-union employees. 4E1 adopts resolution number 7558, authorizing the city to submit an outdoor recreation grant program application for the Quarry Park project. 4F1 approves the payment of bills and electronic transfers in the amount of $1,062,103.54. 4F2 adopts resolution number 7557, supporting the Economic Development Authority's Minnesota Investment Fund application for Entrust Data Card. And 4F3 authorizes appropriate city officials to enter into a joint powers agreement for the 2015 Sentencing to Service program.
All right, any discussion on those items? Seeing none, all's in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. We move on to item number 5, recognition of involved citizens by City Council. This is time where anyone who would like to talk to us about an item that is not on our agenda, talk for a maximum of 5 minutes. Is there anybody in the audience who'd like to speak this evening? All right, we're going to move on to item number 7A, Ice Arena Improvement Options. Ms. Polly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Glad to have this work session tonight as we've been moving along on our feasibility study as we were tasked to do back on December 2nd. Back in December, the city authorized the hiring of 292 Design Group to do the architectural portion of the feasibility study. As part of that, they have a number of tasks. One of their tasks is to develop a plan based on what the feasibility study of the market analysis put together of their programming recommendations. And that portion was done by Ballard and King, who was here for a series of meetings with stakeholders, presented some programming recommendations to 292 Group. With that, we also, as part of the feasibility study for the architectural task 292 group to determine the cost of our current ice sheet and the repairs to that, to change that cooling system over from an R22 cooling system to an ammonia system as required by the state by 2020. And with that, also to determine the cost to fix that, plus add a second sheet onto the current community center, and whether or not there was the ability to put a third sheet on that current site. And then with that, we also wanted them to compare what the cost of building a brand new 2-sheet facility would be if we were to put that on another site that would not require the city to purchase the property. So we're here tonight, we're at a crossroads in the feasibility study, and we need some feedback from the council as to which direction we should continue to pursue to be able to complete the feasibility study and bring all the components back to you to look at each one and whether or not they're feasible with the community, what those costs are, and all of the things that go along with that. So what we're looking for tonight is council's direction on specifically the ice sheet, because we've come to an item where if we put it onto the current community center, then we know if that's the direction we want to go, then we know what the campus plan had looked like based on recommendations from the park board and the city council in the past. We know where the pool might go and where a turf facility might go, how we do the interior. But the other option is the 2 new sheet facility. If we were to put that on a site, not on the community center site, then that changes how we could program the community center campus. We might have the ability, or we do have the ability, or would have the ability to repurpose our current sheet of ice for an indoor pool or for indoor field house or things of that nature. That would not work for an indoor turf facility because the ceiling is too low, but there are other options to do that may be cost savings rather than building it new onto the community center in another area. So I am going to invite Tom Betty, he's our consultant from 292 Design Group, to come up and to walk you through the 2 different options and what that is, and then we'll go over some of the pros and some of the challenges with each option, as well as the cost. We have a basic cost right now of what the 2 options would be. Obviously, as we got into design and further on, you'd get more exact costs, but we have a really good, and Tom can explain where we got those costs from as well, and then to see what your direction is as we move forward so we can complete this portion of the study. Once we get the architectural portion of the study complete, then it goes back to our Ballard and King consultant to come back in and to do an operational pro forma for each of those components to let you know what the operating and the expenditures revenues would be for those portions, to also go along with what those capital costs would be. So is there any questions before I invite Mr. Betty up? Okay.
Straight. There we go. Okay. Thank you, Jamie. Mayor, council, it's kind of funny. Back in 2008, I looked at this for actually with the Hockey Association. Just did some preliminary stuff, and then when Jamie called a few years later, it was kind of fun to pull back into it and see what we could do. So we really looked at 2 options. What would happen if we added on? And the second one, like Jamie mentioned, is a 2-sheet facility. This one here, the first one, is the idea of adding on. And
Could you make sure to speak into the microphones
Okay,
for us?
sure.
That way everybody who's watching at home can hear. Thanks.
You bet. So if you look at this diagram that's up on the screen, the gray area is the existing ice arena. And we looked at adding on coming out to the west. There was a few reasons why we chose this direction early on as a planning study. And there's a little more detail in here than I think you'd typically see in a planning study at this phase. Part of it is we have a wealth of ice arena experience. 2, we want to be able to provide you with information to make good solid decisions one way or the other. And also, I think the other component was the cost estimating piece. I mean, at the end of the day, there's going to be a lot of discussion on dollars and what does this cost. And if I can provide a little more information to a cost consultant, they can give us a little better budget to work from. So with this, we looked at coming out to the west. We would preserve the parking that's down here, and then up above where the main community center parking's at, actually it doesn't show here, but in the estimate, we anticipated adding an additional 150 stalls. Really, that's to deal with, this becomes main event arena. This would become more secondary, so think, youth hockey, figure skating, stuff like that, so not quite spectator draw. Also looking at, shared parking type arrangements, so we didn't want to over-park the site. So with this, we have a stair. This is the lower level, and everyone, I hope, is familiar with the site. You enter on the upper level into the community center, and then at this lower lot, this is down about a story, so 12 feet or so. So this is the lower level we're looking at. So we'd have room here underneath bleachers to put varsity, JV type team rooms. We kind of looked at a combined type room, so a few more lockers in there, toilets, showers, storage in here if we made this a multi-purpose type arena that in the summer you could put turf down. Coaches areas here. And then here kind of community team rooms in this area. That little X is an elevator. A warming area, team room, storage, and so on. The other big component on this is this block right here, which deals with some mechanical and electrical type rooms that we need. These types of buildings are heavy on the mechanical side. Refrigeration plant. If this happened, now we would look at doing a combined refrigeration plant. So this plant would run this sheet and that sheet. And then this is the ice resurfacer room that allows you to access and resurface the ice and resurface the ice. So this does a few things. It makes a nice clean addition. It separates people going to locker rooms, not crossing Zamboni traffic, and then combines the ice plant. So pretty tight, pretty clean type of layout. Any questions on that before I jump to the upper level? Yep.
What, the ice plant, does it make any sense to have it combined yet separate, so if something breaks down, you don't lose both sheets?
You know how we design the ice plant, there's redundancy built in. So typically for 2 sheets of ice, we'd have 3 compressors. So usually it's your compressor that breaks down, and you just get a lot of energy savings by combining the plant to run both. So if you have a problem, it's usually a pump or the compressor goes down, and we have redundancy built into it. Almost every refrigeration plant does. So you can minimize that type of disruption. Very, very common. National Sports Center is running 4 off of 1 plant. So they have 2 plants. One runs 4, the other one runs 4. A lot of professional practice facilities I've done, we do combined plants. We got the technology worked out now, so it works quite well. Sure.
In the notes here, it says that there'd be an inability for people to get from the lower level of the current sheet of ice to the lower level of the other sheet of ice. Is that an obstacle we cannot get past here with some changes to this design?
Well, I think there's, always possibility where we could push out further. Right here, we're looking at a connection here. The problem is we have these existing bleachers. So we'd have to come through and, I'm showing a stair that would bring you up and bring you across. So there kind of is a connection, but it's a little convoluted. Along the back here, it's pretty tight, and you'd have to go around to the back here. So there are some problems with that. Could we look at taking this whole sheet and adding it on down over here? Maybe that's a possibility. And I think for right now, we're trying to set scope. How big would this facility be? But it's going to be a challenge with how this ice sheet's set up with people coming in from up above. It's a big roadblock, and how do we get through that? And that's something we've been, it still have a ways to go, but it is a challenge in this one. We'll go to the upper level. So on the upper level, you can see we'd reposition the access drive a little bit, so we wanted to take that into account for pricing purposes. Manager's office in here, come in, have a lobby. This lobby can access this and access here at the upper level, so there's a good connection on the upper level. Here we looked at, because you could potentially have a few hundred people in here, we'd maybe expand this area here. So you have enough room, elbow room, and so on. Come in here, concessions, toilet rooms right in here, and then a large meeting room in back, a little access way, and then stairs down. Right here, this currently shows 923 seats, which is a combination of standing and sitting seats. I will tell you the 923 is kind of your code capacity. Probably it's more realistic in the 800. The reason being, code allows 18 inches wide per person. I'm not the biggest guy in the world, and I have a hard time fitting in 18 inches wide. So the idea is it's a blend between little kids and adults, but our experience shows us that you end up a little under that. We also were able to tuck in a meeting room in this area also. The last piece was the component of dryland training, and this is a 5,000 square foot addition right here. We've been adding a lot of dryland facilities, 2 ice arenas, new ones from the ground up, we're putting them in. And I would say the size of dryland training that we're seeing is in the 3,500 square foot to 10,000 square foot range. So this is, on the nicer side, but not over the top. I think it allows you to do a lot of nice things in there, from shooting to running drills to some weight training and so on. So I think it seems to tuck in there quite well.
Could you explain what that is for everybody?
Sure.
Just real quick, what dryland training is?
So dryland training, it's in a sense it's kind of a sport-specific fitness area, but that's even a heavy term. You can have weight equipment in there for weightlifting, but a lot of hockey and figure skating groups will use that space where they'll have plyometrics, so there's jumping drills, agility drills, so on. They'll have shooting cages, so you can shoot, set up hockey goals, and so on. Running, jumping, those types of things. So it works on all the quickness and so on. It's really a reinvention of a fitness center, but it's a fitness center driven around sport activities. And it's, they're really, they're pretty bare bones. It's a concrete floor, it's a steel roof, it's concrete block walls, and they go in and put a little turf in an area, and the rest of it's equipment. But it's important space. I think it allows the development of hockey, development of figure skaters, athletes. We're seeing a lot of crossover. We just finished one in Plymouth, and on that one, the youth hockey, high school teams use it a lot, but then it's all the other teams. Softball players, baseball players, so on and so forth. So I think, from a program standpoint, we hit all the elements we're looking for and kind of sets a size of what it would take to add on a good solid ice arena. Okay, it's a little weird, it's end to end, I know that, but we've done it in the past. The site kind of dictates it.
Want to touch quickly before you change that on if we were to just fix the current sheet?
Sure. So, a little hard to see here, but right here, you'll see this little block right there. That is a new refrigeration room. Your existing refrigeration room right here is undersized to fit an ammonia plant in it. Takes a little more room. There's some safety requirements with it where we need some vestibule access, those types of things. But not I would say, in the last 10 years, 90% of my arenas have been ammonia. In the last 4 to 5 years, 100% ammonia based because of the phase out of R22. It's a real issue. The cost of R22 is through the roof because they're no longer manufacturing it. So ammonia is a refrigerant. It's been around forever. It's environmentally friendly. A lot of people get scared by it. We've had very, very good luck. There's safety systems, there's backup purge systems, fan systems, and a lot of your grocery stores use ammonia refrigeration. You don't even know it.
What is the timetable for phasing that out completely? Is that just the life of our equipment?
Pretty much, it's the life of your equipment, and it's also probably more than anything, it's the life of the equipment and also the condition of your floor. So if you look at, about 2 years ago, we did New Hopes, and they were kind of in that balancing act and nursing it along. And if you have a leak, depending on a couple thousand pounds of refrigerant and, pick the day, how much it costs, it'll be somewhere between, $13 to $18 a pound. It becomes a big expense, whereas ammonia is, a fraction of that. So you can't really convert the equipment. It's difficult, and then you have challenges with that. So what you do, we see some salvage value with the equipment that's in there, because there's still systems up and running. They need some parts, but
What is the age of our equipment? Do you know?
I believe our compressors were replaced in 2010. At least a couple of them. We have 4 compressors in there right now, and they have the date labeled on them in the ice arena, but I believe it was 2010 we replaced a few. We have in the budget, though, I think it's only 2 that we replaced because the other 2 are still going, and we have always put in the last couple of years a budget of, I think it's been $10,000 or $20,000, I have to pull it up, if one goes down, to replace that one. Our big concern now is I don't know if you can hear me or not. In our park asset fund, we have it planned for 2018 to do the changeover because of the 2020 mandate by the state. However, we do have a leak in the floor that we have been crossing our fingers it doesn't get worse. It's right in this area of the ice arena right now, so you can go in and I can show you where there's some discoloration in the ice. So depending upon what happens with this whole project, I believe we were going to try to move that up. It's in the park asset fund is what we put the funds, we allocated the funds in. It's going to take a big chunk out of our park asset fund, but we're going to try to plan to do the conversion next year, because it's pretty much going to take out a summer of ice when we do that, if we have no other options for ice to have people go on besides outdoor type of ice. So our plan was to try to plan it through this fall to get it, so right after hockey season, we take it out, we fix it, and it's up and running by next hockey season, but it's
It's a whole
pushing it.
season?
No, it wouldn't be a whole summer.
To repair it? Okay.
Off-season.
Okay.
Which does affect our hockey association and our high school hockey, because they do camps and they do summer things. So it will have an effect on them, but it's likely we could get it done in that off-season, so we're back up and running by September.
Is that something that's absolutely necessary due to this leak?
Yes.
And Jamie, am I remembering correctly that those compressors, when we put those in from Park Board, that those were used when we put those in? Or were those the new ones, or am I thinking of something else?
I would have to get you exact. I know we put in at least one new one.
Okay.
The other ones I'll have to get back to you on exactly how old they were.
All right.
I know I believe 2 are actually new, but I'd have to get you exact on that.
Does the floor take any changes to change over to ammonia?
no, because currently you have a direct floor or indirect flooring system in there, so it's pumping a secondary refrigerant through it. But the problem, this leak area right up in here, that old system is what's called a clamp system. So all the pipes that run up and down clamp onto what's called a header at the end, and those clamps give out. And when a couple of them give out, you can plan on the rest of them going.
I'm asking because isn't ammonia a little more corrosive than Freon?
Yes and no, but the ammonia always stays in the refrigeration room. It never goes into the floor.
Okay, so it's just making it cold.
It's making it cold, and when I say a secondary refrigerant, sounds really high tech. It's, we're cooling glycol or calcium chloride, depending on the system. And I will not engineer that system. I have a consultant that engineers it. I've been doing them for 25 years, so I know, I've been in and out of these rooms enough. But basically, you're chilling a glycol or calcium chloride, which is food grade type glycol, so it's safe. And that gets chilled back in here and then goes out into the floor and gets pumped through and then back out. So all the ammonia stays in here. Typically, we put a purge tank in. It's a big water tank, 500 gallons, 300 gallons, 600 gallons, depending on the final engineering of this. So if there is a leak, the ammonia gets purged through the water, and you have 500 gallons of Windex.
It's kind of
So-
odd, but society started with ammonia and now we're back to it.
Exactly. The mining industry perfected ammonia refrigeration. They really did, way back when. So,
Are they still having to heat the ammonia to make it cool? The old units used natural gas. Is that how this operates?
no, doesn't use natural gas, just electricity through the compressors and compressing the ammonia and
Okay.
generating the heat.
They're
Well,
still
different
doing
way
the
to-
same thing, using electricity.
Okay.
So, I have ammonia systems that have been in since 1990. 92 was my first ammonia system. That's when everyone was doing R22, but I had a rink down in Kansas City that wanted to use ammonia. And it just works. I mean, as the technology has been around so long. So, but in order to redo the refrigeration, we'd have to build a new room here that's bigger, that can fit the equipment, and repurpose the existing one to probably just a storage room, keep it simple. So when you see the costs on this component, it includes not only the rink and the equipment, but also the construction of that room. Is that good?
And we only have one leak, right? Or are there more?
I believe it's one leak in 3 different spots,
Okay.
up there. I don't know the exact mechanics of it, but I believe it's just one leak, but you can see it in 3 different areas in the general area on the ice.
Okay. So we don't know yet.
It's all the connections on the ends on the headers that are
Yeah.
gonna start.
Yeah,
Right.
so
When
those
we-
connections, and then probably the floor cracks a little, so it comes, path
Right.
of least
Okay.
resistance.
When we do our maintenance for the year, when we shave the ice down, whether we take it out or just shave it down, we will be able to get a better idea of what the severity of it is. At
Okay.
this point, it's, under the ice still.
All right.
This is the new 2-sheet facility. So we're looking at, this is more like a practice sheet, seating of about 300 people in bleachers right along here, a lobby component in here, concessions, management offices, toilet rooms. This can take any configuration. This was really what we did, is we took some plans that we've done in the past and modified it to kind of fit the program, working with Jamie and Ballard King on what we're looking for. So this is really about setting, we have all the spaces identified. So we have the team rooms. These would be like your youth hockey type team rooms here. The center core is kind of your high school core, where women's varsity JV, boys JV, coaches, some storage in the middle. Thinking for, the high school could have some storage in here for uniforms and all that type of stuff. This is a visitor's varsity locker room, or it could be, when Bantams are playing a little older team, they'd have access to some toilets and showers. And then your kind of standard team rooms in here, and then some toilets and miscellaneous locker rooms.
Could you tell me a little more about team rooms? What is that?
I'm sorry, it's a locker room.
Okay.
So
So they
without,
can keep their stuff there.
well, the youth team rooms just have a bench and hooks in it. So it's where a youth team comes in, they change, go out, skate, they're done, they suit up, and they haul their gear out. The high school locker rooms here would have typically built-in lockers. They keep their gear there. Makes a lot of parents happy because it's not smelling up their house. So this would be kind of that type of locker room where the gear stays there. In the hockey world, we call them team rooms.
So you'd have one team on the ice, 2 rooms for one for each team, and then the next team that comes on would be ready, and they'd have their own little room.
Yep.
So
So-
you'd need about 8. Just to
8,
keep
and
things
in
rolling.
this plan here, we provided 10.
Okay.
And there's some, we did that out in Buffalo where we provided 5 team rooms for their second sheet, because you run into tournament play where all of a sudden some games go into overtime, things like that, and everything falls behind. So it gives you some ability to schedule and tighten up your schedules a little bit, which can be kind of nice. So it's ideal when we can do that. So we kind of put the ideal situation in here for now. This, very similar to the addition concept. Shared refrigeration room, Zamboni, dump pits, your standard stuff you need. With this one, we're showing enough room here for a spare Zamboni. Usually you take an older gas type one and have it here for backup. If one of them breaks down and you're in a weekend, you're in the middle, every hour of ice is a couple $100, so you want to be in business and be able to keep things moving. So whenever we get to 2 sheets, we try to provide some space for that. Mechanical and electricals here. And then what this shows is, in the future, if there's ever a need for a 3rd sheet, we come right through here and you got kind of this complex. So it's a pretty simple box with lobby space that's designed to handle 900 to 1,000 people here and a few hundred in there. So that's the main level. Upper level's pretty simple here, where we have bleachers in here. And it's nice. It's something we've been doing in the last decade or so. If we can split up all the toilet rooms and facilities, so we try to do that. And I did it partly, I wanted to make sure it gets absorbed in cost estimating. But day to day, you don't need all the toilet rooms that you have down below, and these up above, you only need these for game day. So you can keep these locked down 90% of the time, so it minimizes your maintenance on toilet rooms and wear and tear and horseplay. So we found that to be a pretty positive benefit. Here, this is community rooms. The dashed lines indicate those could be operable partitions, so you could have a big room for meetings, you could have 3 small rooms, you could have one that's this size and one that's smaller. And then this puts dryland training up in the middle for kind of between both sheets. And this is, once again, it's in that 5,000 square foot range. So, and this is really designed off of no site. It's just assuming you'd find a site for it.
Now the first, we don't have room for 3 on the first, where the community center is now. Is that how I understand it?
Yeah, it's very difficult to get it to fit in and get people through.
Okay.
Could we jam 3 ice sheets on there? Sure. But the control and the ability to watch it gets very difficult. And parking becomes a problem.
Right.
And this will require, chunk of parking, based off of your zoning code. What we did, you'll see some costs and so on that I think Jamie's going to run through and I'll assist with. But in both schemes, we assumed 150 parking stalls being built, so we could kind of compare apples to apples between the two. Hopeful if we find a site, maybe this can have some shared parking with an adjacent, school or facility or so on. We're doing that a lot with shared parking.
What's the average cost of a sheet of ice?
As far as what's in it,
Just the average cost of 1 sheet of ice.
1 sheet of ice, project cost or construction cost?
Both.
Both? Well, depending on seating, if you're looking at 600 to 800 seat arena, you're going to be in that $8 million range.
Okay. And then in this paperwork here, it talks about a pro forma being done on the, does that take into consideration the dollars that the school is hoping to set aside for the dry land training and locker rooms and stuff?
Before we get to all that stuff, let's finish off with the design stuff, and then we'll get to those questions.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. To build a new 2-sheet facility, how many acres of land would we need?
It'll depend on parking, but in, rule of thumb, 6 to 8 acres.
Okay.
For 2 sheets. And then if you want to plan to go on to 3, maybe you'd want to be in the 8 to 10 range.
Okay.
So, and a big part of it is parking dependent.
On adding a sheet at the community center, why are you adding a new main sheet? Why couldn't we use our current sheet as the main sheet and then have a additional just practice sheet of ice, basically?
I think the big part on this component was kind of driven around, can we get all of the, varsity locker rooms and those components kind of tied in, where it's slab on grade construction, so we'd have to put, where do we get the team rooms and then the youth team room? So that kind of drove it. I think you could look at potentially doing that.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions just on the concepts at this point? All right. Thank you very much, sir.
You bet.
Jamie, you've got.
Yeah, I
Okay.
just have, just as we looked at in your memo, I put a few of the pros and challenges of each item, just to lay out a little bit of what we talked about, doing from the beginning. Just to recap, just to repair our existing is about 1.75 million, as we talked about, which is in our park asset fund right now. And then, so, pros to adding on to our current community center, with that cost that's estimated now, that's with fixing our current sheet and adding on at 12.8 million. The pros is the ability to continue to utilize the current sheet of ice as it is once it's updated. So we already have an ice sheet there. Once we fix it, we'll continue it as an ice sheet. And then the lower initial capital costs. Challenges is the repair and the additions could interrupt, during the construction could interrupt the hockey season. Even if it's the off season, it will interrupt it at some point. Traffic flow and congestion, just with the end to end, we have to make that flow with the community center traffic as well, and where the kids come in, whether we use the lower parking lot or the upper parking lot. When I have in here the inability to get from the lower level of the new sheet to the lower level of the existing sheet, I should have prefaced that more with the ADA concern. That's what my main concern was. As an able-bodied person, yes, you could come from the warming area on the lower level and walk up the stairs here. If you cannot walk upstairs or need that elevator, we have an elevator in each side of the community center, so we'd have an elevator in the new sheet and we have the existing elevator in the community center. The issue is then if you are on the lower level in the warming area, maybe helping your kids get their skates on or whatever, and then you need to get over to this rink to this other warming area that's on the other side, or to get to the offices or the team rooms because your other child's playing on this sheet, you need to come back up the elevator, go on the upper floor here, come across the old sheet into the community center, down that elevator to get to the lower level of the existing sheet. So that's where the concern is more with the ADA accessibility. It is accessible, it's just a roundabout way because the area behind the benches is not wide enough to get past there on the lower level.
Could you move the location of the elevator to up top between the two?
It's still, there's no room, this is a stair right here.
Right.
So if you're on the lower level of this sheet, right immediately here, you're hitting stairs. Even if you'd put the elevator here, and the area that you need to get to is over on this side with those team rooms. So the only area that doesn't have stairs is back here behind the team benches, and there's not enough room between the wall and the benches to
Okay.
get through there. So that's where it's challenging. It's not on, where you can't do it, but it's the
Put
challenge.
some slides in.
We could, we could put slides in. We could just have them go right across the ice, Then small lobby area compared to when you look at the two new sheet facility, you can see that lobby area is very large to accommodate, your tournaments and your 1,000 people that are coming through. The adding on would have a smaller lobby area. It'd be a little bit more challenging. Skaters crossing the ice resurfacer path. This is something we currently do today, so it's not out of the question, but it's not ideal, and that's for the teams that are actually playing on the ice. Right now, when they're in their team rooms, they cross the Zamboni door and track every day, so it's something we do today. In the new sheet, they would have to do the exact same thing. Ideally, that's not something we want our skaters to have to do, because it's a safety concern. But it's done today, so it's not saying it can't be done. On the new sheet, the skaters would come out mid-ice, and they'd come out of these team rooms, and they would skate across to their benches on the other sides. They could come out and go around, and they'd still be crossing the ZAM, but they would mostly come out mid-ice and go to their benches. Going back, and then we talked about the challenges with the third sheet. For the new arena site, that would, the caveat to that is we'd have to put it on land that we would not have to purchase. If we have to purchase land, the price goes beyond that $16.7 million. So between the two options, it's about a $3.9 million difference. Pros to the new construction is just the improved layout and functionality with the additional lobby space, with the team rooms and the flow onto the ice, that sort of thing. Room to add a third sheet in the future. The current sheet could remain operational during construction. So even if we were to repurpose our current ice sheet, we could be using it while we build the two new sheet facility and then repurpose that as a later phase. And then, as I mentioned, the ability to repurpose that for added costs of adding a complete new structure onto the community center, either that pool or that field house. Challenges is definitely the higher initial capital cost, and the location, which could be a challenge, it could not be a challenge, but maybe for a staffing, is just a separate location from the community center. But you'd have your staff housed out of there, and hopefully, we do it now with our summer staff being out on site and in different locations, so it's just something we have to manage.
Regarding that staffing, how many people or how many additional people do you think you'd need for a second facility?
We will have closer recommendation with our operational plan or recommendation from our consultant.
Sure.
However, I did get a preliminary idea from him, and besides added a few extra part-time staff. Right now we have one full-time ice arena manager and multiple part-time staff. He would recommend adding another full-time, but not at the ice arena manager level. It would be lower, a little bit below that level, so a lower pay grade, to manage when the manager is not there, later evenings, weekends, but then the rest would all still be completed by part-time staff. So one more full-time capacity.
Okay.
Jamie, we'd be looking at that likely in either scenario, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Oh, okay.
With two sheets, we anticipate we would need two full-time staff regardless of whether it's an independent facility or tacked on to the community center.
Good to know. Just, I know it's maybe part of the feasibility study here, but if you take away the ice arena traffic from the current community center, what does that change as far as dynamics of the community center? Anything that, are we relying on that traffic for anything?
No, I don't feel that we are. We do get, with our hockey families, we do have a few that come over while their son or daughter's on the ice and they work out in the community center. But it's not a lot, and if we were maybe in proximity, we maybe still could make that work. We still could, have our members. Right now, if you're a member, you get to use the ice as part of your membership. Our usage numbers are not real high where it makes a big difference in our membership. The majority of our membership is dictated by our fitness center, is what really runs it. The ice sheet really runs pretty independent of the community center. The staffing doesn't cross over at all. We don't use the same staff in both areas unless in an emergency, but it's very rare. The hours are different. The uses are mainly the association comes in for their practice or their games. The high school comes in for their practice or the games. and they only go to the ice sheet, and they don't typically come to the community center. So, like I said, we do have a few that do come, maybe work out during the practices, but they run pretty independent now.
Okay.
What other questions do we have? All right. You want to come down and sit?
Sure.
So what does, what's everyone's feeling, that we should do and move forward here? I forgot, I have one question.
That's what I did too,
Sorry.
Go ahead.
With the repurposing of the current sheet of ice, if we went to a new, what kinds of things could we do in there? And then if we were to do that, what kind of cost savings would we have? Sorry, do we need to stand back up?
No, but we do have one idea. We just played with this when we were working together with Tom, is if we were to do, because the school district, if they have their referendum, may add, some gym space. So we didn't look at that particularly right now. However, we could look at that option, but we looked at more of the pool option and what that might have the ability to be. So Tom did a quick idea of how that could work in the ice arena shell. I'll let him talk about that a little bit.
Okay. So, this is the current outline of the existing ice arena. So what we looked at was building over the top of the bleachers, and you'll see on the upper level plan it creates some fitness space. But we wanted to plug in, because that was one of the things we talked about. If you looked at a new facility for ice, what could we fit in here? So we took some typical components from community centers. So this is a zero depth pool, so beach type pool, a little current channel in here, an area for some play structures, slides, coming out into the plunge pool. These little dashed areas just kind of show umbrellas and chairs. And then this shows a 4-lane kind of exercise type pool where you could have water at basically about the same depth all the way across. So it's used for exercise swimming and aerobic, water aerobic type swimming. And then in here is where the current wall sits. We'd have to get a little creative in there and probably relay out these plans. I just wanted to make sure we could fit something in here. So we get the locker rooms here, locker room down here, and then in the middle, the idea of family locker rooms. So we feel very confident that we can fit the program for a pool or aquatic center in here. This shows the pool mechanicals that we would need, some lifeguard areas and things like that. So looking at it, feels like it can fit. And the other part of this that I think is critical, the existing ice arena enclosure, so the walls around it, the roof, are very good. So when this building was built, it allows for you to change that use. A lot of times we'll see some ice arenas, they're built out of like a pre-engineered metal building with fiberglass type insulation in it. This is all concrete with the foam insulation, so it works as a good envelope for an aquatic center. So that, to me, and the reason why I picked this one to study, I think it's the one with the most challenges programmatically. What can we fit in here? We know we can fit courts in here. We know we can fit, fitness in here. That's pretty easy. So we kind of took the challenging one to make sure, can we make this work and fit? The other thing we looked at, you'd want to add windows. So we looked at adding windows along here, which we've done in many buildings like this. So you could get that natural light, and it faces south and west, so you get nice afternoon to evening sun in this space. So it doesn't happen too often where you got an opportunity to repurpose space.
How many people can that serve? Do you have a guesstimate?
I guess.
Yeah.
Give me a minute for the squirrel cage.
How big
to,
are the kids?
18-inch seats or 30-inch seats?
Seats, yeah, I know. You're gonna easily serve, 300, 400 people in here.
Okay.
This is gonna give you a lot of area for aquatics. This is a pretty decent size aquatic center. almost similar to like a Maple Grove type. Okay? And I could give you exact numbers in the future. I'd have to
Right, I was just,
do a little
if you could guess
calculation.
for
But
me.
yeah, you're not limited to 10 people. You know,
Yeah.
it's got some room. And, you know, we tried to look at it when Jamie and I were meeting, you know, well, you put some slides in, and then a thing that's become very popular, current channels. Seniors like it to walk against the current for exercise, you know, morning classes. It gives you abilities to program it, which I think, you know, from where Jamie's sitting, that's the important part. Can you hit all these age groups and be able to do it? So I think we feel pretty comfortable that we can fit a program in here that would benefit the community.
So that would go from 0 depth to 4 or 5 feet or something like that, or?
It usually goes 0 to 42 inches.
Okay. I did think of my question, if I may. If we decided in the long run to go to that second facility, would that repair and shutdown of the ice be necessary? Could we delay that long a period of time to get the new facility up and running before we shut her down for the summer?
I think, you know, without taking the ice out and knowing what the exact severity is of it, we had guesstimated that we maybe could get 2 years out of it without having to for sure fix it. That's chancing it a little bit, so the sooner we can fix it, the better. But I do believe if we were to move on the decision that it could be done in the next 2 years, I think we could probably stretch out the current sheet
Yeah.
for that. I mean, something could always break, and we could be wrong, but that was our
Could
initial thought.
potentially do that, okay. Thank you.
And then simply, you know, it's not too exciting yet, but because this is more of a fit diagram, what can we, you know, get in here? But looking at, you know, stretching area behind the current toilet rooms, because this is where the entry was for the ice arena. So I think we can capitalize on some of that space, and it's nice with windows and so on. This would give you that kind of fitness gallery where you could, you know, line treadmills up, ellipticals, you name it, and then a larger fitness space right down in here. So this is all your fitness. It has views down into aquatics. We could, you know, pop a couple windows in here. So I think there's some opportunities there. We just call this exercise room for now. I don't know if it stays exercise room. We have to fit teens and seniors and all that. That's the next phase of the study. But I think what it shows you is the idea that we can start to recapture some of your current fitness space and reprogram that, and you start to have kind of a nice setup of activities where you get aquatics, you get fitness here, you get exercise multi-purpose in the middle. I keep hitting the laser off of Jamie's head here.
Feeling warm back there.
Yeah, and then basketball here. You know, so I think there's just a nice, you know, setup programmatically. So there's opportunities on that side too.
Where's the spinning closet?
Somewhere in that exercise room, multi-purpose room.
Right in here at the end.
Or down there, yeah.
So I think really what this shows is this: there's opportunities with it. Some of the challenges of, you know, the difficult spaces in our world to design our aquatics and having the right envelope, wall construction and roof construction. I understand the roof was, you know, replaced not too long ago.
Last year.
We actually even put money in the budget because I know the perimeter flashings we'd have to redo if it's aquatics versus ice, just humidities and temperatures and how they work and where we'd get condensation along. So we've taken that all into account. But I think it shows you that there's possibilities.
So, Tom, reusing the existing shell to house, say, an aquatic park versus having to build a new shell to house an aquatic park, what's the price tag on that, or the value of that?
Hold on one
Well,
second.
my question is, are we basically just shifting it? Because we may be paying more for the 2 sheets on option B, but then we're just really shifting that cost savings over to the pool
We're
area.
paying
Pretty
less
much.
for an aquatic park.
Yeah.
Exactly, it's just
Yeah.
gonna shift it, I think.
When we had our initial estimate on just the basic, I believe we had 6.8 million to build that aquatic park and the fitness component of it. But it was 10.5 if we were to build a new sheet on the end, and that was from the same cost estimators.
Yep.
So about that three
Can
and
you
a
say
half.
that again for me?
Yeah.
looking for
getting
my
it.
exact numbers, but I believe it was 6.8 to repurpose that and.
6.7.
6.7 to repurpose that to an aquatic park and the fitness, so it's essentially a little, you're adding the fitness component in there as well, versus 10.5 to put on a new aquatic facility on the end of the building.
Other side of the building.
So that's what, 3?
So
What's the
doing this
difference?
is only between $6 and $7 million. Is that what you're telling me?
Yes.
Okay.
So if you look at it, looking at the notes here from the cost estimator, so he said, he took this and put a price on it, and he said, overall, our budget is tracking around $210 a square foot to repurpose this space. Compared with a new aquatic centers currently are running $300 to $350 per square foot. So that existing building infrastructure provides the cost delta between the 210 and the 300 to 350. So, that's really the difference between, 6.7 million and the 10 point, I'd have to do the
I
math.
think it was 10.5.
10.5,
Does that include the equipment?
yes.
The
Yes,
fitness
it
equipment?
includes the pool vessels,
The difference is
the
cheaper.
equipment, dehumidification,
No, the
Oh,
fitness equipment,
That's what I was thinking.
no.
no
I
fitness
just didn't have
equipment,
any
no.
No,
right,
but
my
I
numbers.
believe even in our current plan, we have a lot of fitness equipment that we would replace as we currently do now, but I don't foresee us adding a lot of additional fitness equipment off the bat.
Okay.
I think that's something we could do over time, but we have a lot of fitness equipment right now, just
Stretch it
jammed
out.
in a really small spot.
That's what I was coming up with too.
Where we're at?
So.
Yeah.
This would net us more classroom,
That's what I was
fitness
thinking.
classroom space, studios.
Correct. In this scenario, we were just playing with this. In this scenario, that where it says exercise room is actually the teen center. That would be a programming question of whether or not we repurpose the teen center to add the exercise rooms. The idea of putting the exercise rooms there and not in the current multipurpose room is because of the high ceilings in the multipurpose room. We could potentially use part of that for that indoor playground component. That would be the extra, 2-story idea. Add a room on top and below, or even a wall in between that could be your drop-in childcare and your spinning studio or another meeting room. So there's some programming questions with this as to whether the teens and the seniors, stay here and we find another space for them that we could use all day, kind of like how we were looking at the teen center.
So this multi-purpose room is that mezzanine that's not there now, that,
The multi-purpose room that's labeled there is the current fitness room. So it's the old gymnastics.
But on the second floor, it would be a new mezzanine.
It'd be,
Yeah.
that would include the
that'd be the
infill.
mezzanine, because this is second
Yes.
floor.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, so we kind of looked at, what's the block of space we can get
Okay.
to break up and push and pull into the right, program elements that you're looking for. And I think that's part of our exploration as the study moves forward. So what are we gonna do with it? So, just to recap, I've been doing this a long time, close to 30 years, and this is pretty unique to have the ability to repurpose into, that type of space. So it gives you options anyway.
Thank you. We like options.
Yeah, it's good to have.
Yeah. All right, so let's circle back to the ice question here that we're discussing tonight. So we've got 3 main options. One that's just fix current sheet of ice. One is fix current sheet of ice and add a second sheet of ice at the community center. Third is repurpose the current sheet of ice and build 2 sheets of ice somewhere else. Jamie, what do you have in mind for locations, places where we could do something like that? What are we thinking? I mean, do we have options?
I believe we have options, nothing secured at this point other than city property. We do have 2 sites that are 10 acres that the city owns that are potential. One is at Tapa Park. We have 10 acres to the west of Tapa. It's kind of a pie shape, but it could potentially work. Parking might be an issue there, but the land is big enough. And if we just did 2 sheets, it could potentially work. And then Schutrip Park is the other option where we have 8 acres. Right now, that's currently, earmarked, or not earmarked, but in a holding pattern for development until the tennis association either does what they've asked to do or not. And we have a approximately 18 months to wait on that, because once we had that term sheet approved, then they had 18 months to fundraise, and if they didn't make it, then it was off the table. Those are two city property. There may be some other partners in the community that own property, even a private owner that might be interested in partnering with the city, potentially, school district property that they're not using, other property that a business might have to own. That would be your second, if we went with the two sheet, that was the second recommendation, is then to task staff with trying to seek out those different locations and what those partners and ideas might be. But I think we have options.
Okay. So what does everyone think that we should do? What is the best course of action to look at for how we move this forward?
I did want to add one other item to those numbers. Both of the options of the second sheet include us as a city shelling out the team rooms for the school district and putting electric to them and plumbing, but they do not include furnishing the team rooms. So it doesn't include putting the fixtures on, putting the lockers in, putting the flooring in. That would be a cost that has been indicated by the high school that they could incur, or the Hockey Association as far as the dry land goes. So we have a separate, it's between 150 and 180 to finish those locker rooms that the school district could potentially have as a part of their option to finish those. But the basic prices that we have is to actually just build the shell and have them, they could be used with a hanging light for a while, but they would not be finished.
Jamie, the same is true of the dryland training, right? It would
Correct.
be a large empty room that the city would provide, and some combination of the Hockey Association or the school district would be responsible for furnishing and equipping that room as they envision using it. We would just be providing a large enclosed room.
Obviously, no decisions have been made here, but has there been any conversation with the school district through some of the different meeting groups about any of this?
No, I'm not sure how to answer this question. Yes and no, but I think
It's all
that,
speculative,
their
yeah.
referendum is very important right now, and
Oh.
so they need to focus on that, and I think all along, the school district's been very open to the city and the school district serving our community. So I don't think it's off the table to have that conversation once we know what their facilities are gonna be.
But currently, there's some fees that are exchanged for
Oh, yes,
hockey,
for usage, yes, that has.
hockey usage and
yes,
things
will
like that,
continue.
and that would continue. And I guess the question would be, if we make a decision and how we move forward, if it were perchance on any kind of school land, what those considerations are gonna be. So I guess
And we haven't had any discussions
no
about exactly,
discussions, yeah, nothing.
only to give them the heads up that we would having this discussion tonight, and if, I wanted the superintendent to know that if he tuned in, he might hear it. Well, maybe we can partner with the school district. He didn't,
Well,
but we haven't actually had those conversations yet. We want to know where this council wants us to go, and as we try to wrap up this study in the next 30 days or so, which direction should staff and the consultants be spending their time and energy on?
I pretty much knew that. I wanted to make sure it was stated.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Well, I think we're probably signaling shell shock to our constituents. They're looking at a $1.3 million referendum from the school district, and they're probably watching this going, how much is that gonna cost? Hopefully it doesn't have a negative impact on the school referendum. It's my understanding that school referendum has $8.5 million allocated for athletic type activities off school site. And I think it was 6.5 for athletic stuff on site. Mr. Berg's in the audience, he can correct me if I'm wrong. But the school seems to have a pretty big need for ice for their high school players and the team rooms and stuff. I guess my question is, how come the school doesn't build that on their site for their own use? In
In conversations we've had with the school district over the years, the they do have a need for ice and, but I think that they don't want to be in the ice management business because their need is right after school and their games. It's the youth association that uses a large chunk of that time.
Our youth association.
The
So we
city's
have
youth, yep.
two groups trying to get the same time, and then the peak time, that's, I would guess it's probably after school until 9 o'clock at night or so. Everybody wants that time, and then it sits for 3/4 of the day empty. Because nobody's using it overnight.
Right, nobody's using it
Right.
overnight. Mhm.
So we're trying to crunch everything into a peak time, thus the need for 10 sheets of ice, so everybody can use it when it's convenient, and then leave them all empty when it's not convenient.
And that's not all that different. I mean, if you look at all
Right,
the
right.
baseball fields we own, they're sitting empty now for month after month. They
Yep.
just have a significantly different capital and operating cost, unfortunately, than an ice arena does. But we have plenty of recreation facilities that have peak usage times. It's just the nature of the service.
Well, but I guess the school really has the need for the team rooms.
Yes.
Yeah, we're gonna build them.
Actually, they are going to supply what's
They're gonna
inside of
supply
it.
But we're gonna build it.
Mm-hmm.
Will that room become theirs at that point?
No, I think it'd just be an agreement between them and us and how it's used.
And we're getting
No
into
different than when the baseball does
That's a
theirs.
We're getting into
Yep,
details that we
exactly.
don't need to be discussing
Yeah.
right now.
Well,
I
we're-
mean, we
we're-
don't know the details of exactly who's gonna own what and how that would work. We've been very clear, as you've sat through meetings, as I have, that everyone is willing to partner and work together. Exactly what that looks like, we don't know yet, and we're not gonna figure that out sitting at this table. But we do need to have a clear direction from the city as to what direction we would like to go together, and that will allow us to work on partnerships and work on how that goes forward, and to provide some, as you talked about earlier with the schools referendum, it's actually, as it's critically important that be successful. And I think that us adding clarity to where we would like things to go is a very good thing for the community to understand, to have a much better idea than us just throwing around numbers at 35 million. What we're talking about here is significantly less than that. And so as we further detail what we're talking about, and continue this discussion tonight, that will add clarity and understanding. We haven't talked about finances yet. That's not until the end of this month. So let's talk about what would be best for the community now. And if once we get to the 31st and have the discussions as to how much things cost and how we pay for it, that's the time where we can take and pull things back and do other things. But let's look at what would be best for the community today with the way we can move forward with this positively.
But, Mayor, I'm trying to do that based on the information that I have. And the information that I have, we all have, some of it is based off our community survey, which I haven't got my copy yet, so I'm going off memory, which probably isn't real good at my age, but, indoor playground, I think, was on that list of higher things. Ice was way down. It was almost last, second to last. So I'm trying to gauge, what it is the community really wants based on the information that I have.
Right, and the second sheet of ice was at 40%, support or strongly support a second sheet of ice, which in the city of Shakopee, that's 16,000 people, which I don't think is an insignificant number. And we're not gonna get
But based
50
on the other
plus.
things in that survey, it was eighth, seventh or eighth.
Right, and we're not gonna get everything to be 50% and above, but we also know what needs are in the community, and that's the way we go for it. And if the council doesn't wanna go forward with ice, and we just wanna fix the current sheet of ice, then that's where it is for now, and that's what we need to decide so that we can get to the next steps of these programs.
For me, it's about increasing the value of the community. And that's why I'm looking more at option B, is building the two-sheet facility with the addition of the third. We are only growing. We're talking about the west side of Shakopee and what we're gonna do there, you're only gonna have more people moving in and wanting ice time. And I think that's, and if I'm calculating correctly, I mean, it's actually repurposing for the pool, it's all gonna end up be cheaper than to add on to this existing and a pool onto this existing.
A lot of your ice driver is a school district. And
Our young children also use, and our community wants ice time. They just don't have the ability to have it right now.
the survey said the community wants these other things more, so.
Doesn't mean we don't do this.
We had 400 people in that survey. Did we hit all those hockey people? I mean, we all got
Well, we didn't hit all the
many
pool
emails
people
this
either.
past week. I think I counted 82 emails. And some of the things I took out of some of that discussion and those emails was things like broomball, figure skating,
The needs
more
that aren't
free
being served.
skate.
Yep.
Of course, curling, which we've heard a little bit about in different communities. We're not saying we're going to go there, but
Yep.
you never know. Might be the
Might need
hot
it.
thing next
Yep.
10 years, but we don't know. There's so many other options that indoor ice could be used for, and the idea that this does create an opportunity to do something with the community center that, and it might take a few more years to do it, but we're looking at a feasibility study. We're not doing this. We're not going in and
Right.
building it. We're looking at the study that says, hey, go out and look at these numbers so we have the facts to make the right decision. We may decide after we see the numbers, say, nope, too rich for our blood, but we got to be armed with the facts. So
Right.
I would like to see the best option looked at in the feasibility study, and I think that would be the second facility. I think that was option B.
Mike?
I'd go with the grand plan, 2 sheets of ice on one property, redo the current one because it's logistically the best way to go. Somebody's gotta tell me how we're gonna pay for it.
Yep. I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah.
We've got to get that
That
piece
and,
figured out.
we spend big money on a study and we basically just threw it in the garbage can.
No.
No, we
did
didn't.
not. How do you tell me why you say that?
It's 8th out of 9.
But think about
what's
what
number
you're going to
one?
bring to your community having 2 sheets of ice, the tournaments, the people that are going to be that influx, spending money in this community that doesn't happen right now.
You
Because
wanna-
all that money gets spent outside of here.
Build a pistol range if you want people coming here from out of town. Serious.
We have a higher
But these are
percentage of-
also places where our community meets and gets together. That's why it's called a community center.
I think the number one thing on the study was the pool, right? The swimming pool, the aquatic part of it. So how do we get there? Well, maybe a little push, maybe a
Yep.
little pull here, but we're looking at the big picture and trying to keep that community center viable. And that's always been my thing. Well, join the community center. Well, there's no pool,
Yep.
And I think that would be a great opportunity for the little kids up to the big kids, to the seniors. It would create the options to do that pool in the community center with a less cost. And all we're doing right here is looking at the options with the
Yes.
feasibility study, so.
You're gonna need indoor playground.
Well, that might be one of those rooms, we
That
we
was,
have.
That was
was in
talked
there.
about in the
Yeah.
repurposing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was in there with.
Yeah, I thought I saw it on the one level.
Right.
Didn't
Yeah.
have a price associated with it.
Yeah, it was. It was priced. The repurposing portion was priced at 6.8.
That was part of the pool?
I don't know if the indoor playground was included in there, the fitness component and adding the fitness around was, not the playground.
Space for an indoor playground was allocated there. We don't have a price tag on an indoor
On it,
playground
yes.
yet.
Okay.
That's our next, when we complete, where that would go, it would,
I think that's part of the direction, because depending on what direction, that determines what do I need to fit within the existing community center to meet programs and so on, and where do we fit it, and how do those items cost out. So it'd be all those components, indoor playgrounds and so on and so forth.
Tom, what's the ability, would we operate 2 sheets of ice and keep 2 sheets of ice running year-round? Or would we only, operate 2 during the peak season and possibly use that space for something else?
All I can tell you is from what I've seen from designing 30-plus ice arenas and how they're used. It's driven by market, but a majority of the facilities will shut one sheet down in the summer And what they're doing is starting to, either it's going dark or they're converting it over to turf. So there's some summer turf events and then the other one stays ice. Now, with saying that, there's some facilities with, you know, the management and programming they have, they're better off to keep the ice going, both sheets, year round. And I'll use Rogers as a single sheet. That was all designed around the premise of shutting it down in the summer. It's yet to shut down. And that's been quite a few years. So, you know, I do see a lot of, with the two sheet, one stays, the other one goes, converts to something else.
And that would be an
Some-
option for either two-sheet facility, option
Either-
A
either
or
one.
B.
Yep,
We would have
yep.
that option. So it's not a deciding factor, really.
Not really,
In
no,
Okay.
Do you have
No,
to
and-
design it differently or not?
no,
Okay.
no, it doesn't really change at all.
You just would
I mean, the
invest
only-
in the turf flooring if you were gonna roll it out.
The only thing you may look at, we typically do it as an alternate, see if it's worth it, put a little bit of air conditioning in the one sheet that could be summer. And we don't air condition it down to 72 degrees, we air condition it down to about 84. But we get the moisture out, so
Dehumidify it.
it's somewhat comfortable inside, for running indoor, sport camps or activities, and, you know, it can go all over. You know, Buffalo uses their second sheet for dog shows and everything else in the summer. One down in Iowa converts for cattle shows. It's, you know, it's where's the market?
No Iowa jokes now.
Hey,
It's very profitable for them, by the way.
That might be a little
That'd be
bit
a
out of
change.
our,
And I
specialty.
can't remember,
Oh,
but
don't
cows
even
give
try.
out certain BTUs.
I think I forgot to mention the speed skaters. I think I
Yep,
got them
yep.
all, but
I
I had to add
Yeah.
those guys too, so.
But I think, you know, that's just the next step. So once you know, pick a
Yeah.
direction, then it helps us kind of focus in to try to get through all the other components that are on the survey. But this is such a big piece.
all right.
I do believe Ballard and King will include that possibility in their pro forma of whether or not we keep two running or not, and what that would look at revenue and expenditure wise.
All right, so we've talked about this. Do we have any motions for moving forward and what we want to look at?
I'll make a motion to look towards option B, building a new two-sheet facility. Do I need to add to that?
Second
I
that.
think to complete the architectural study.
Okay, and to complete the architectural study.
I'll second that.
Is that all you need from that, Jamie?
Yes, and
And then we'll go to the,
Yep.
yeah. All right, so we have a motion by Counselor Mokel, second by Counselor Whiting. Discussion.
Did,
Councilor Lehman.
did we really need a motion for this, or is this just a majority direction to the consultant?
I was wondering
to
that too.
Tell them what it is we're looking for in their informational study.
I would rather have a motion, as we almost always do, for getting these directional kinds of things, especially something that's as big of an impact as this. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Aye.
Passes 4-1 with Counselor Lehman in dissent to go with option B. And then there's a second piece now, Counselor Mokel.
I'll make a motion to direct staff to pursue potential partners and location for option B.
I'll second that.
Counselor Mokel, motion, Counselor Whiting, seconded to look at pursue potential partners and locations. Do we have any discussion? Counselor Lehman?
I'm curious to how this happens when there's no funding or no dedicated plans. Are we just gonna walk up to somebody and ask them, tell me how this happens?
That's the feasibility study.
They're gonna approach property owners and ask them, what are they gonna ask them?
Well, we have to look at our current sites, the two current sites that we have as well, and I think then, you know, a conversation with the school district after the referendum would probably be our first step, as we've talked about from the Joint Facilities Task Force all last year through this whole process of how these community facilities look. And then as far as other potential property owners, that will be something that we need to see where certain acreage is, and then just the conversation. I don't think at any point we're going to enter into an agreement at this point. I think we need to know what our options are to come back to you on that work session where everything is available and say, you know, the city's options this, the school district is open to this, the property owner XYZ may be open to this, and these are our potentials. At this point, I think we're just looking at potential locations for it, but nothing would be worked out until you give the direction to, yes, we're going to go ahead and actually pursue this amenity. That's how I foresee it. Is there different?
I think that makes very good sense. We can't know what we're going to be working on until we look at it, and so we've got to have options and check it out. So I think that's good.
Armus with the facts.
Yes.
Spot on 8th Avenue is probably not gonna work, though.
Not big enough.
Councilor Luce?
8 acres.
Just so everybody's clear, I'll go along with it to a certain point. I believe it's, not doable, but, you know, let's take a look at it completely. and
What's not doable?
The whole project. I don't think financially we can do it. We can't put this burden on our taxpayers.
Okay.
You know, I know the Hockey Association would love it. I think it would be a great thing for us, but financially, I think we're gonna struggle deeply with this.
Well, and that's what
That's what I'm
actually
saying, let's go forward and see what it's all gonna shake out.
let's finish up discussion here, and then we'll talk about the next steps as to where everything goes from here. Any further discussion on this item, the motion on the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Aye.
Passes 4-1 with Councilor Lehman in dissent. Ms. Wilson?
You wanted to know what comes next?
Yes.
Okay.
Can we take just a couple minute break?
Can we know what's going next, then we'll take a couple minute
Okay.
break.
Finish the community center discussion,
Alright.
and before we do Jennifer Lane, we can. What comes next is that Jamie and her staff and the consultants we have hired will flesh out more what a community center would look like with the ice arena shell available for reuse, what those costs would be. That will inform the pro forma, that we'll have space for this, it'll bring in this much revenue, and it'll cost this much in staff and utilities and so on to operate. Those are scheduled to come back to you, those feasibility results, those pro formas, at a special workshop 4 weeks from tonight, March 31st. It's a Tuesday. You already acted a couple of council meetings ago to establish that as a meeting. So the community center will be our primary topic for that night. Present at that meeting will be most likely representatives of our feasibility consultant, Ballard and King, although they're out of state. So we still have to work out exactly whether they're going to be physically present or remoting in. 292 group, as well as Springstead, will be here to discuss the financing options that are available to a city looking at these types of projects. So that'll be our primary discussion on the 31st. May carry over somewhat into your conversation on April 7th at your first meeting in April. We'll just have to see how that goes and how long that conversation takes.
And along with that, just so everybody's clear, is that on the 31st, we will not be making final decisions saying that we're going to do anything. That's not
Absorption night?
Yeah, that's to get all the information in on the architecture, on the feasibility, and just figure out where this whole big project really sits, and understand, to your questions, Mike, as to how could we fund it if we wanted to do the whole thing or a portion of the whole thing, if we'd go out for referendum the whole thing, or go out for referendum on a portion of it, or how that all would work, or not do anything at all if we find out that nothing works for the community that we want to see. So that is the 31st. We'll be taking in all that information, and then as we go forward, I do not anticipate we'd be making any final decisions at all before the school referendum, and we would need to see what's going on with that before things happen further down the road. So that's the way I anticipate it going forward, and figuring out those pieces from there. Does anybody else have anything we want to talk about before Councilor Lehman makes his
Just thank
motion?
Jamie and Tom and Chris and staff for doing all the work on this. Thank you. I know there's a lot more to come.
Good. Councilor Mogul,
I'll make a motion for a 5-minute recess.
do we have a second?
Oh, I suppose that.
Do I just take that as an assumed second?
I'll
Can I do
second.
that? All right. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? We are in recess for 5 minutes, 4-1, with Councilor Luce in dissent.
A Pamela Punt move
Yeah,
there.
exactly. Dodge City Council meeting. And we will move on to item number 7B, revised concept for Jennifer Lane Extension. Mr. Loney.
Okay, thank you, Mayor, members of the council, members of the audience. This item is being brought back. Scott County wanted to revisit this. If you recall, on October 15, 2013, we brought a proposal to you to look at extension of Jennifer Lane. It's shown in yellow here. And we would be making these road connections to Wood Duck Trail. And you can see Fairhaven Drive is over here, and County Road 17 is in this area. With the County Road 17 project, the county has federal funds and could use some of those federal funds to help build this roadway, probably pay 80% of the roadway, and they're willing to purchase right away in that area. One of the issues that we had with the residents when they didn't come through we couldn't reach an agreement last fall. One of the issues the property owners had is they did not want to incur any assessments. I just want to show this one map, and I'll go into some other details. The reason we would be interested in this is Marshall Road and Wood Duck Trail, Jennifer Lane and County Road 78, and 79 and Fairhaven Drive are the connections in this neighborhood, which includes Stonebrook Drive, Lakeville Drive, Wood Duck Trail, and Blue Heron. After 17 is rebuilt, there will really be, it still is, Wood Duck Trail is the only way in and out for this group of people. By getting these connections made, we provide connections to 79 and 78, much safer and more, much better access spacing even for emergency management. So, just to recap a little bit, what we're doing, and I'll blow this up a little bit. What the proposal now is and this was a concept that was developed by the county using a consultant. None of this is really platted, none of this is just an idea of how many lots with sewer and water these properties could get to show that the increased value of their properties would occur if sewer and water is in the neighborhood. So what we looked at doing that, we've come up with cost estimates, but going back about a week or two ago, Fritz Minden, who owns a parcel to the west, was looking, he has some platting rights from the Stonebrook plat where he could plat property and with on septic and on-site well. But actually, he would add a well system with the Stonebrook property. But you can see the septic systems in the lots, fairly tight. Some of the alternate sites are in the golf course. So we wanted to revisit this one more time and look at another option. And I'll explain this option right now. One of the options we looked at is to, in the area where sewer could be served, which is the area in green here, south of Valley Creek Crossing 2nd Edition and west of Marshall Road. What we looked at, we could do what we've done before is add a lateral sanitary sewer connection charge. Essentially, what we would be doing is looking at the area being served, the amount of acreage being served, the cost of that, and I've got a cost here I'll show you. And what we can do then is front that cost, pay it out of our sewer fund, and then get reimbursed when property develops, when they do the connection, when they connect to the sewer system. So that's a mechanism that we could use for you to consider. We've done that for the County Road 83 sewer south of 17th Avenue. We have that in, but this would have to be a separate fee because it is a different area. So what we're talking about roughly sewer, we've done a quick estimate, and these are all preliminary proposed. We would fine tune these if this is approved by council. About $180,000 for sewer. So it's about $3,800 an acre we're estimating, and then the different property owners would have different acreages. That would be their charge when they connect someday. And Spuck would have to do, they're on board, they would like to bring water down to this area. If I go back, they would bring water down to this area here to serve this site of sewer and water. And they would have to develop their own water connection charge. They would have to front the money. The other component in this is the street that would need to be built in. We would, this is a rural section, Lakefield Drive, right now. And we would be looking at probably continuing this rural section up to this point right here. We can bring curb and gutter, or which is existing already, a curb and gutter section with the sewer and water. Property owner here has indicated he does not want to develop anytime soon. And we wouldn't know, in this area, we would not know where the street connections would be or sewer and water connections. The sewer is going to be around 25 to 28 feet deep. So I'm guessing, we think we can go back in there. A developer would probably have to come back in there, dig down and get the sewer connections or street connections where he would want them. And Spuck doesn't provide any water connections to unplatted lots. So we would not be able to put any services out here. So this road, essentially, we could get a paved road in here, kind of a rural section that we're thinking, and eventually development would come in here. They could salvage as much as they could of the road, but have to come back in here under a plat and a plan approval and make those connections. So before you tonight, council, is what we'd want to do is, do you want us to approve a lateral sewer connection charge concept for this area? And then the other item would be that we would be looking at about $89,000 for the city cost of this road in here for our cost contribution, and that would be out of the capital improvement fund. And the rest of the cost would be the right-of-way cost, and the other costs of the road would be borne by Scott County and federal funds. So with that, I have any questions?
Councilor Lehman.
What is, what's the driver? What's Scott County wanted to relook at this? Why does Scott County want to relook at this?
Councilman Lehman, I think this accomplishes a couple of things. One, Scott County is on the verge of having to return a significant chunk of federal money and just give it up if we cannot make this agreement come together in the next couple of months.
That's
You know?
$1.1 million, if I recall.
Yeah, so,
correctly, right?
and I mean, loath to turn back federal funds when we have them at our disposal. And specifically, putting in Jennifer Lane now allows them to reverse the driveways for those properties that are going out onto Marshall Road and eliminate those accesses off Marshall Road as because they're expanding that section of Marshall Road this construction season. And so they would remove those driveways and turn them around onto Jennifer Lane, thereby improving the safety and the functioning of Marshall Road, as I understand it. So I think that's the county's primary interest, is let's use the federal money while we've got it, and let's complete the improvements we're trying to make to Marshall Road by removing those accesses. So that's one thing you accomplish. The second thing is, as Bruce noted, Mr. Menden is interested in developing his parcel right now. Without this project, his parcel would likely develop on septic. With this project, his parcel can develop on sanitary sewer, the city's system. So that's the second thing you accomplish with this. And the third thing is you just tee up those other lots for subdividing and platting when those property owners are ready to do so.
And fourth, you make a better egress.
Oh, yes, and as Bruce mentioned, you
emergency.
significantly improve emergency access and safety. That wood duck trail, I don't think it shows
Yeah,
on here.
This is a better drawing, but Wood
That
Duck
left
Trail
turn
is-
out of Wood Duck Trail to
It's still
come.
not a safe,
No.
I mean, even after the county improves it, it's still gonna be, and now you got 4 lanes to deal with versus 2.
Instead of those property owners that are coming off of Lakeview Drive and Wood Duck Trail coming out there and to come quote unquote into town, they're gonna take a left and go north on 17th. That's kind of a dicey left. They could take Jennifer Lane through, take a right, out onto the county road and then a left at the stoplight. And so you've got a much safer route, into the rest of the city.
Next question then, Mayor, would be, is my understanding Wood Duck stays open after the reconstruction of Marshall Road. Does the assessment amount for the lateral to these properties, 3871, I think it was,
Yep.
does that then stay that amount? Let's say 2 years down the road, we change our lateral price to $4,000 or something. Does that price then stay with
This
these
price
lots?
would be fixed to these properties.
Okay.
But we would also do a cost price index increase, because it's based on today's dollars.
Right. And,
So we would look at what the inflation, or what is the price increases.
So
So
it would
this
change.
would not stay fixed.
right,
This grows as,
the base stays
Dollar
fixed, the
this is
multiplier
fixed.
changes.
This would be fixed
Okay.
today.
And then does the property owners agree to this, or do they not need to agree to this?
I probably would ask Randy, who's had some discussion.
Hey, Bruce,
Randy
can we clarify what you just said about the $180,000?
Mhm.
The $180,000 stays fixed as in today's dollars? Is that what you mean? And it will increase
Yeah.
with inflation?
Once
or
we
it will
set a
always be
fee,
180?
once we set a fee,
Yeah.
we can, you have to have a nexus. What's the cost, what is the cost, what are we serving? We set a price per acre. That price is fixed. But 10 years from now, $3,800 might be, really the equivalent of 5,000. So as prices increase, we always look at what is the engineering news record cost value increase?
Okay.
Is it up 2.1%, is it 3%? Then we would increase that price.
So basically, you're saying we're gonna get interest on the money.
We're not getting interest, but we're not losing to inflation.
So if these parcels didn't develop for, say, 5 years, they're not gonna end up paying $3,800 an acre. They're gonna pay something more than that in 5 years when they come in and wanna connect,
Unless we have no inflation.
unless we have no
But
inflation.
the chances are, I think.
They
we're
might
gonna
pay
have-
less if you have massive deflation.
Sure.
That's wedding.
We wouldn't be using our current plan of making them hook up within 5 years. We're gonna wait till they have to develop, or when they choose to develop or plat their land.
This is a connection fee. They only pay when they connect. So if
And
there's
there's
no,
no-
if they never connect, we'll never get that money back. Other than, like Fritz Minden, he probably would be connecting fairly soon, so we would get that. But, yeah, that's the premise of a connection charge versus assessments.
But
You're
they're also
fronting the
not-
money
They're
and,
not gonna develop without connecting.
right.
That's our hope anyway. Yes,
Mr.
ma'am.
Mayor. Councilmember Lehman, to your question, if the city council is agreeable to this concept, the county will go out and work with those property owners to acquire the right-of-way for creating that Jennifer Lane, and they'll be able to assure them that there won't be assessments for the street or the sewer underneath. They still have to agree to sell the right-of-way for that roadway voluntarily to Scott County. We don't have time to take it through condemnation or anything, even if we wanted to, and we don't. We're looking for a mutually beneficial, mutually agreed upon solution or way to take advantage of this opportunity that's presented by the federal funds.
This creates a great opportunity. This is a winning move. The last time we talked about this, I think it was in 2013, I think it was Councilor Lehman who said, gosh, it's too bad we couldn't make this happen. Now this is an opportunity. If the property owners don't take it now, they're losing
Yeah.
out on a great thing, because they don't have to pay it until they decide to plat it, and that means could be never.
And as Ms. Wilson mentioned, all property owners would have to agree to this proposal, and that would be the next step. And it is a fast track to get the plans designed. I think we have to have them done by June 1 or even earlier than that, so. And designing the sewer is not gonna be that difficult. We still have to get Shakopee Public Utilities to move on their water main and their lateral connection charge. So then, and Joe Adams has indicated they wanna do that, so. But it's all very dynamic right now.
Councilor Lehman, you have a motion for us?
No, I'm not done asking
Oh,
questions,
all right.
but I'm not against it yet. I'm gonna make sure I'm not against it. My question that wasn't answered is, my understanding is Wood Duck stays open when Marshall Road gets reconstructed. Is that accurate?
That's the plan right now.
Okay, the reason I ask that is because if it's not with this improvement here, that whole row and that whole chunk is gonna be adamantly opposed to that. And then it asked the next question, when a sewer is put in here, what's the timeline to force these properties off septic onto city sewer?
There's no timeline to force it. It brings it closer, so if the day came where the property owners on Wood Duck Trail were approaching the city,
Failing.
because most likely they would approach the city because multiples, septics are failing. We would be more prepared to meet their needs at that point than we would be without this sign. But this is not coming into Wood Duck Trail or Lakeview Drive and does not set off any type of, timeline or clock under which they would have to connect. It does make it so if they did come to the city in the future, though, you're gonna be closer and your ability to meet that request is gonna be improved by this line. It's not gonna be all the way there, and it's certainly not gonna be without cost to bring it into Wood Duck. But we would be better off than we sit today if you were to get that kind of request.
It's just so everybody understands, if this goes to here, Fritz Min has indicated he would like to develop, so then this connection would be made through his development. And if these properties, when they do develop, we would recoup the cost enough for the lateral line and trunk line that we would have to spend. So we wouldn't have to extend this line any further. We would recoup our costs within this area. And that line could just sit there until whenever that neighborhood needs. In fact, I think we reclaimed those streets not that long ago.
Councilor Mogul.
I'd like to approve a motion approving the concept of the lateral sewer connection charge concept for the extension of Jennifer Lane from Valley Creek Crossing, second edition, to the Wood Duck Trail, and for the city to contribute funds for constructing Jennifer Lane street improvements.
Would it be so?
Seconded by Councilor Luce. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all's in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. Item 8, entertain a motion to adjourn to March 12, 2015 at 7 p.m. Anyone?
So
Councilor
moved.
Whiting, do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Mokel. Any discussion? Seeing none, all's in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.